Welcome to Quill Creations. My name is Jake, and this is Purzax, the Corrupted Claw. Now, to start, we need to make the armature. But while I'm doing that, why don't I give a little bit of a backstory? Purzax is from a world where animals have evolved in different ways. For example, in the case of Purzax, he has managed to evolve into what is currently known as the peak, aside from gods and demons. Not everyone has reached this level. A lot of these animals have only reached levels of speech. Others may be evolved into lesser form changes. But for those who have reached the likes of Purzax, a demand of respect, and even fear in the case of Purzax, is required when dealing with such individuals. Now, this form of evolution can be achieved in many different ways. However, the faction in which Purzax is from, they tend to make deals with a more shady means of power. Before I explain what I mean by that, let's talk about the sculpture a little bit. Throwing a blanket of clay, let's make that smaller. I will cover the armature so I can add the detail. When thinking of a design, I was originally going with a more sleek frame to better represent the agility of a cat. However, after thinking more about how his faction gains power, I was reminded of Savage Opress from the Clone Wars. I like the idea that Purzax was chosen to undergo experiments to speed up the evolution process of an individual. This would explain why some parts of him are more muscular, while other parts stay the same. I decided to give Purzax some clothes for two reasons. One is the artist reason. I wanted to learn how to better sculpt clothing, since it's not something I do a lot. I did this by putting an actual shirt on and posing. This helped me understand how folds would form when in different poses. The second is the lore reason. I feel like when evolving, there becomes a greater understanding of protecting oneself. Some it was armor, others, like reptilian factions, it would be to keep warm. And once magic was discovered, weavers with the gift could imbue clothing with heat and protection spells, further making clothes valuable. For the style of Purzax's clothing, I wanted to go with something more casual and comfortable. I decided upon a normal shirt and baggy pants. Purzax never cared much for fashion, going for comfort rather than flashiness, like some of the others. He'd rather his raw power speak for him, rather than some fancy clothes. I considered giving Purzax shoes, but ultimately decided against it, after watching some videos of cats and shoes. I think for most of the characters in this universe, shoes will be an absolute no-go. I will then add a belt to make sure these pants don't fall off. And to not lose any progress, I'll take Purzax into the oven for a bake. Once everything is locked up, we can work on giving Purzax a face. For this process, I spent hours on Google looking at cat pictures, going through my draft before, finally, settling on this one. Now, as some of you may know, I own 3 cats, and some of my videos have even featured them. So why didn't I grab one and base the head off of that? I went ahead and opened the mouth a little bit, so I could put some demonic teeth. I also put a crazy looking eye on the same side. The idea of this is to show that whatever they did, or more accurately, whatever they put into Purzax, may still be warping his body today. Now at this point I was starting to rush through and get this done, and thus, in my opinion, the hands and the hair showed for it the most. My goal was to get the video out in 2 weeks after my last. As you can see, that didn't really happen. This isn't to say I'm not happy with how it turned out. In the end, in fact, giving time restraints to my work will force me to finish projects instead of getting burnt out trying to make every detail perfect. Now, if only I could use this same philosophy when editing and writing the voiceovers for these videos. Now for the trench coat. I went ahead and flattened out some clay with my pasta roller. Then, taking the flattened strips, I blended it towards the base of the back, blending the sheets together to form one piece. Lastly, I can bulk up the tail and move to the claw. Purzax's claw was a result of the experiments done to him. Let us go into what these experiments were. Purzax was part of Project Ascension. Their task was simple and surpass the peak, a label given to those who had evolved. Okay, so maybe this process wasn't so simple, but when the discovery of god beasts and demons were known, an opportunity was born. Finding one of these demon beasts near dead, they thought to try and preserve it. After some tests, Ascension learned that the beast's blood contained energy similar to the peak. Taking individuals that showed promise, they injected the beast's blood just to see what would happen. Almost all either died or became mindless beasts they decide to call Dreadlost. There was only one in this test batch that managed the peak, Purzax. He described it as a battle inside his mind, and that he almost lost, but with the will to hold on, he claimed the power as his own. Once I'm happy with the look, I'll take some tweezers and rough up the ends of his coat before the final bake. Now that the sculpting is done, we can move on to the painting. When deciding on colors, I wanted to go with darker tones, but I also wanted colors like reds and yellows and oranges. Purzax's faction is all about power and combat, and obtaining it by any means. These means, as I talked about before, tended more on the sinister side, and I feel that this would reflect in the colors the members would don. Now, as for the oranges and yellows, Purzax and his people have a very fiery personality, and the symbol of fire is very important to them. Fire signifies light and warmth, but get too close, or in its way, and you'll get burned. That is the motto of the people. I then went with black for the claw, to give it a dark, sort of burned demonic look. And, oh no, am I out of oh, nope, Never mind, we're good. I decided to make Purzax an orange tabby, since orange kitties don't tend to make the best choices in life. And I'd say signing up for an untested experimental project is definitely orange cat energy. I'll then paint the hair brown to go with the stripes that I'll add later. Now let us add a few extra details to everything. Did somebody say painting montage? Shirt was looking a little bit boring, so I made a stencil of this claw flame, and the idea is that this would be the symbol of Purzax's faction. I should really come up with a name. Let's go with Chris Claw for now. I'll workshop it later, or maybe that'll just be the name. Who knows? Now let's lock in all the colors with some varnishes. For the main body, I went with a matte varnish, and the claw, a glossy varnish to kind of give it more of a slimy look to it. And yes, I added way too much of this stuff on the project. Now that Purzax is all but finished, it is time to build him a base. And I figured a rocky base with lava around it would be kind of cool. So I'm going to take 2 different sizes of foam and rough them up. I'll then stick the smaller one on top of the larger one, roughing the rest up with my X-Acto and pliers. I will then cover everything with a black paint Mod Podge. Once everything is covered, I will add a light coat of gray before dry brushing multiple other shades of gray. Finally, I can mix up some UV resin with some red pigment powder and pour it on the lower part of the base. Once everything is cured, we can go on to the glamour shots. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about Purzax and his world. This sculpture was a lot of fun to make, but even more fun just creating something new. Now, this video is super late coming out, as you can see, but if you'd like to see me make more original characters like this more often, hit that like and subscribe button. It'll let me know that you guys enjoy this type of content. Now, I'm not sure what I'm going to make next, but I'm hoping to make something a little bit more simple so I can get a video out a lot sooner than this one. In the meantime, I'm going to take a nap while the rest of these shots play out. Thank you, and coiled out.